The lore of Roanoke, the colony that vanished without a trace. The village should not have been empty. There should have been smoke rising from the chimneys, voices near the wooden houses, footprints pressed into the dirt. Somewhere, a child should have been crying, laughing, or calling for her mother. But when the English returned to Roanoke Island, they found silence. The houses were gone, the people were gone, the heavy objects had vanished too, as if the settlers had not been dragged away in terror, but had packed what they could carry and stepped into the wilderness. No bodies, no graves, no signs of a final battle. Only a single word carved into wood: Croatoan. Was it a clue, a warning, a destination, or the last trace of a colony that disappeared from history before history could explain it? This is not just the story of a vanished settlement. It is the story of the first English dream in America becoming one of its oldest unsolved mysteries. In the late 16th century, England watched Spain grow rich and powerful from its empire across the Atlantic. The New World became a place of ambition, fear, trade, and conquest. Sir Walter Raleigh wanted a permanent English presence on the edge of an unknown continent. Roanoke Island became that foothold. But the island was not empty. It was surrounded by indigenous nations, fragile alliances, and a landscape the English barely understood. The dream began as empire, but it would be remembered as disappearance. In 1587, a new group of settlers arrived at Roanoke Island. Unlike earlier expeditions of soldiers, these were families. They had come to build lives. Their governor was John White, a leader whose family was among the colonists. His daughter, Eleanor Dare, was there with her husband, Ananias. Soon after they arrived, Eleanor gave birth to a baby girl, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. For a brief moment, Roanoke was a beginning, a child in her mother's arms, a fragile hope planted in a dangerous place. But hope does not feed a colony. The settlers soon faced the brutal reality of isolation. Supplies were limited, and relations with nearby indigenous groups grew complicated. Separated from help by thousands of miles of ocean, John White made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He sailed back to England for support. He expected to return quickly, but while Roanoke waited, Europe erupted. England was drawn into war with Spain. The Armada threatened invasion, and ships were pulled into the defense of England. Across the ocean, the settlers of Roanoke were left completely alone. 1 year passed, then another, then a third. Imagine them watching the horizon, day after day, searching for sails that never came. Imagine the food running low, the trust breaking down, and the fear growing sharper with every storm. What did they do when they realized no one was coming? In 1590, John White finally returned, not just as a governor, but as a grandfather. His granddaughter Virginia would have been nearly 3 years old, but when his party reached the settlement, Roanoke was no longer a colony. It was an absence. The fort had been dismantled. The houses were not simply ruined by violence, they appeared to have been carefully taken apart. Belongings were missing, and the settlement seemed less like a place destroyed in panic than one deliberately abandoned. That detail matters. It suggests preparation, movement, a deliberate decision. If there had been a massacre, where were the bodies? If there had been a sudden attack, where were the signs of destruction? White had given the colonists strict instructions before he left. If they were forced to abandon the settlement, they should carve the name of their destination. If they left under distress, they were to add a cross. There was no cross, only one word: Croatoan.
Croatoan was the name of an island to the south and of the indigenous people who lived there. So the simplest theory is the most human. A starving settlement turns to nearby allies for survival. Families leave behind the failing colony, take what they can carry, and carve their destination into wood. Not a warning, directions. Maybe Roanoke did not vanish in one terrible night. It walked away. But if the answer was so simple, why did the mystery survive? Storms, dangerous waters, and failing conditions prevented John White from conducting a proper search at Croatoan Island. He was forced to leave without reaching the full truth. The rescue became another failure. The trail remained open, and history hates an open trail. From that silence, legends grew. Some historians believe the colonists joined the Croatoan people and gradually blended into indigenous communities. Their English identity disappeared because survival demanded a new one. Names changed, languages changed, children grew up between worlds. The colony vanished from English records, but perhaps not from life. Another theory suggests a scattering. The settlers may have split into smaller groups, some moving deeper into the mainland, searching for food and safer land. If true, Roanoke was not one disappearance, it was a colony breaking into fragments, and fragments are easy for history to lose. There are darker possibilities: starvation, disease, or conflict. Earlier English expeditions had damaged relations with local tribes, and the 1587 colonists inherited the consequences of those mistakes. To the inhabitants of the land, the English were armed outsiders connected to past violence. An attack is possible, but the evidence is incomplete. No battlefield explains everything. No mass grave has closed the case. No surviving document tells us exactly where they went. Roanoke becomes a wound in the archive. The records show departure, delay, and emptiness. They do not show the final choice. They do not show Eleanor Dare holding Virginia in the last days of the settlement, or whether they marched south, moved inland, or faced violence. They do not show the moment when Roanoke stopped being a place and became a question. What we know is small. The settlement was abandoned. The word Croatoan was carved into wood. No cross of distress was found. The rest is shadow. But shadows preserve what certainty destroys. The mystery survives because the clues point in different directions at once. The carved word suggests intention. The missing heavy objects suggest planning. The lack of bodies suggests something other than sudden slaughter. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the lost colony was only lost to the English. To someone else, they may have been neighbors, strangers who became part of another people's story. Roanoke did not end in emptiness. It ended in transformation. But transformation leaves fewer monuments than death. No grand ruins, no final letter, only a word on a post, weathering in the coastal air, waiting for someone to understand it. More than 4 centuries later, Roanoke remains suspended between history and legend. It is a broken map, a door left open in the dark. Every answer creates another question. If they went to Croatoan, why were they not found? If they moved inland, how far did they go? If they died, where are the dead? And if the truth was once known, who failed to write it down? Virginia Dare became a symbol before she had the chance to become a woman. John White became the man who returned too late, and Roanoke became the colony that history could not bury because it never found the body. No bodies, no graves, no final confession. Only a word. Croatoan. Maybe it was a cry for help. Maybe it was a destination. Maybe it was the beginning of a new life no English record could follow. Or maybe the most unsettling truth is this: the colony did not vanish without a trace. It left exactly one. and after more than 400 years, we still do not know how to read it.